just really work towards how can I build a huge customer base for myself before going out to investors. One of my favorite investors always says like it's easier to say like, hey, I already have a business and it's going well. This is why you should give me money for it versus like give me money so I can go build this business. It's just, it's shaky for them.
Welcome to the H-Files, the new series of the Hands-On Business podcast, where we dive deep into the world of healthcare leadership and the unique challenges facing small to medium-sized healthcare businesses. I'm Hakeem Adebiyi, and after years of helping businesses grow in various industries, I'm excited to focus on the area that I know the best, healthcare, one of the most dynamic and impactful sectors in the world today. In this series, we're going to explore what it takes to lead and grow in healthcare, from navigating the complexities of regulation and innovation to overcoming the everyday hurdles of building a sustainable business in this fast-paced environment. Each episode will feature real-world insights, expert interviews, and actionable strategies that can help you push your healthcare business forward. So whether you're a leader in the space or an entrepreneur ready to break into it, the H-Files is here to give you the edge. Digital health cash has been drying up lately, and if you don't believe me, the US funding has seen a threefold drop in the last 3 years. And due to that, we've seen several companies go into Chapter 11 and others have seen their valuations plummeting due to failed funding attempts. Now, in that climate, pulling in the first 1 million can feel like performing surgery with the lights off. Yet, that's exactly what today's guest, Tamar Blue, accomplished with MentalHappy. Now, MentalHappy is a Y Combinator-backed HIPAA-compliant platform using expert-led support groups to tackle the mental health crisis. And Tamar is the CEO of MentalHappy and has over 15 years of experience in emotional wellness and group-based care. Tamar's aim is to ensure that emotional support becomes a core part of the healthcare journey. And in today's episode, it's going to be based on how Tamar raised her first 1 million for MentalHappy, and she's on to 2 million at the moment. Actually, she's raised 2 million. And in this conversation, we're going to be unpacking the fundraising tactics that cut through the skepticism in medtech, and that's done by obviously anchoring your story in clinical outcomes. And then we're going to talk a bit about the personal resilience that you need that powered Tamar's journey. So we want to really learn what it's like to take and raise $1 million for a medtech startup. So welcome, Tamar.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Hakeem. I'm happy to be here. Appreciate all the listeners.
A pleasure. Thank you very much. So before we get into the fundraising, just take us back a bit to when you first spotted the gap in the mental health support that became MentalHappy. And what problem did you think you were solving, and why were you so determined to try and solve it?
Well, I've had a joy and experience with support groups since I was really young. High school was my very first support group that I started for fellow students in my high school. The program did really well. It started to spread to other campuses. It received funding from the school district. We won an award for it, for the work that we were doing. So I've just really always had a passion for this space. As I got older, I really fell in love with tech and the idea that you can build something over here and then people are using it over there, somewhere very distant from you. And I like the idea of automation and making things do something without the manual work of it. So tech was just very exciting to me. So as I graduated college and then really just kind of got into the career and work world, I just started to see so many ways that people are not cared for emotionally. I was in HR at the time, and I spent most of my day helping people navigate kind of their emotional life stuff when they would like call in and problems that they would have outside of work. So it just kind of got me thinking about my life passion again. And this was way back in the day, I think like 2013. Tech was just really exciting. Like it was just really moving fast after the recession here in the United States, and obviously a global recession worldwide. But it was just a very exciting time. So I just started figuring out tech and just merging those two passions together. And the gap became very clear for me that yes, while we do have really great systems in place, oftentimes for healthcare, no matter what people think about healthcare around the world, the fact that you live in a place where you can call a number and someone will come and pick you up is great healthcare, right? Like it still has its problems, but there is still a gap between once that person leaves the healthcare system and they go home and they have to now navigate all the emotional baggage that comes with whatever they're going through, whether it's physical, whether it's a physical illness or a life event related illness.
Okay, and so there's obviously a gap there from, as you just said there, from when they go home to then actually managing the whole emotional roller coaster around there. So how did you validate that that was an idea that was commercially viable? Because it's all well and good to have. I mean, lots of people have ideas, lots of people like tech, but translating that from an idea into something that's commercially viable, how did you go around validating that?
Yeah, and I do want to say for the non-techies who are listening, like people who don't code, who don't, write any scratch of code or even understand it. I also came from that same world. I wasn't a coder. I didn't understand like how those things come together. So when we originally started Mental Happy, we started with a physical product. I think any founder should really start with the skill sets of where you are. And for me, it was much easier to figure out putting up a basic website that I was able to do and then sell a physical wellness product. And it was from that wellness product that Mental Happy grew and grew and grew in terms of like users, customers. And it was that initial idea that started working and gaining traction and really led to us getting into YC to begin with, and then started validating the other parts of that assumptions that I had, that people do want something more than like a package or a physical thing. People were writing in and saying like, hey, is there a community? Or, I got this wellness kit from a friend. It was really great, but I could use a little bit more support. Is there anybody else like me? Can I be part of this Mental Happy movement? And people just kept on saying that, like Mental Happy movement. And we threw up a Facebook page and started doing support groups through social media platforms and advertising them online where people can kind of connect and find more information about emotional wellness. And that's when it was like, okay, people actually really want this. And if we're having a hard time managing these support groups on platforms not built for it because of advertisements, spam, bots, things like that, then, probably other people who want to run support groups are having the same problem. So we started building our platform, pivoted to that. And yeah, it just one thing quickly validated another, that, in tech, we say like you want to cross 10. I think nowadays you want to maybe work towards crossing 100, but initially if you can find 10 people that are willing to sign up for the thing, and better yet, even pay for the thing, then you have something going. And we were able to send people just like basic payment links, like, would you pay for this community? Would you pay an annual amount? Would you pay monthly? And that's how we were able to slowly test. Initially, I say we, but initially I was a solo founder kind of after the pivot, and then like hired engineers on and stuff like that. But initially I was able to slowly test like, okay, is this something people would want? I actually pivoted Mental Happy without my co-founder because he moved on.
Okay, so when you say slowly, because I know everybody who's listening or watching, they think of digital, they think of medtech, and they think, oh, it's got to be 100 miles an hour. So what was that sort of like time frame where from when you pivoted to when you got to almost like your first users and then get some cash in and revenue in?
Yeah. So we were making money with the physical product. It just wasn't really where I ultimately wanted to take the company to go. So I ended up pivoting Mental Happy by myself at the top of 2020, January 2020. Um, and I had sunsetted the physical product at the bottom, like December 2019, November, December. And I started out I had changed the website by myself, and then flipped it into a community at first. Like, hey, would you be willing to join this community? Would you sign up for it? And then I just put up a basic payment. So at the top of January 2020 to, I want to say, so I all the whole month of the whole year of 2020 during the global pandemic, COVID, all these things, it was still just kind of promoting, and that kind of helped because a lot of people were home, so it really pushed a lot of traffic online, which was great. And people were obviously suffering from, just whatever they were going through. COVID just really being at home alone just really magnified whatever you were mentally experiencing. So there was that. But from January to the next January in 2021, I was gathering users, collecting payments, and I was also fundraising $1 million in that time. And I actually ended up closing that first $1 million, I believe like in April 2021. So I didn't have the tech built. Didn't, in terms of like the full platform that we have now, where it's like web and it's robust and it does all these things. There's an iOS app now, an Android app. Like I didn't have any of that stuff. I didn't even have an engineer. So I just kind of went out and just risked it all and, created this great deck, told investors like what my bigger vision for the platform was. And look how I, got all these people to pay me for something that's like not really fully ready yet. And all of those things add to validation, right? That you're doing something. I was able to pivot by myself. I was able to raise the funds. So yeah. So it took
Yeah,
between not really building the thing, but just kind of gathering users for the thing and payments and raising at the same time, which I don't recommend, but clearly I did it, so it's possible. It was a little over a year's time and probably would have taken less time than that, but just COVID and the pandemic just really kind of slowed things down that year.
Yeah, I think it did for all businesses, to be honest. And actually, it's useful to be able to be in a space where I don't want to say take advantage, but actually that your products or your service is something that's required by people during that period of time where medication, mental health were all things that were actually much, much more needed then because of the circumstances that we found ourselves in. So in terms of, because you started, and if I'm not mistaken, with community equity for crowdfunding on Start Engine, then you later attracted some venture firms. So what did you learn from each route, and what would your advice be to people who are starting fundraising? Would you say go down your route and then go to venture firms, or go to venture firms first? What would be your advice?
Yeah. So when I set out to raise, again, it was a crazy time at the top of the pandemic. I wasn't sure if investors were meeting people virtually. Here in Silicon Valley, it was like, at the time, it was just like a lot of face-to-face meetings, like in person. So there was a little bit of a gap between investors kind of realizing like, well, we still need to get deals done. We're not going to be able to meet people in person. So yeah, these virtual meetings are just going to have to happen. But even before that, in that time of uncertainty, those couple of months at the top of the year, I decided to do equity crowdfunding. And I'll say my favorite platform that we've used since is actually WeFunder. We did start with Start Engine. Nothing bad about Start Engine. It's just WeFunder's a fellow YC startup, and I just like the terms and the platform a lot better than Start Engine. So I would say that's just my personal preference. No bad words on Start Engine or anything like that. You should pick whatever works for your company. We raised of the first $100,000 through equity crowdfunding. That was great because that not only brought in the cash that I needed to help me hire a product person, help me hire an engineer person, and it also brought in early users and customers as well. So it was very helpful in that regard. I do highly recommend, if you have the skill set where maybe you have a lot of followers on social media, maybe you have a large email list. I do recommend that maybe you do something in that interim, to, if you don't have this deep network of angel investors to get you started.
Okay, great
And
advice.
then I shifted, once I raised the 100K, then I shifted to going out to cold messaging angel investors and saying like, hey, I just raised this money. That also gives them validation, like, okay, you have some money. And then from angel investors, super angels, and then from that, I was able to do VC. I will say, being YC backed, it opens a lot of doors for me, especially as a woman of color, especially as a female founder, where I don't fit the prototype of 22-year-old out of Stanford, a white guy building a product.
Yes. Did you think, I mean, because what you just said there, I think you're almost saying that the crowdfunding helped the VC firm. And do you think that's normal, or do you think it's just because of your demographic that they actually felt they needed that additional validation, that you actually had some cash and that you'd actually validated the idea, because otherwise people wouldn't have raised the funds and also got people using the platform?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen crazier things. I've seen, but I think those days are gone. I think the days of just being able to raise a lot of money on a paper napkin idea uh, are probably behind us. There was a brief period, even after once the pandemic was like really in full swing, between like 2021 and 2022, where people raised a lot of money very quickly. But I was building my product. I was done raising and just moved on to building my product then. But I think now for sure, what I'm at least seeing in the market is even having something like $1 million in ARR. So I would say if you do have a product and you do have an idea, you should get it out to market as quickly as possible, get many signups, users, and just really work towards that. How can I build a huge customer base for myself before going out to investors? Because I will say, like, much of the noise in the market now is, you just have to have the traction. You just have to have the revenue. So if in my case, it was very helpful early on that I was able to, it's easier. One of my favorite investors always says, like, it's easier to say, like, hey, I already have a business and it's going well. This is why you should give me money for it, versus like, give me money so I can go build this business. It's just, it's shaky for them.
Yeah, no, I think so, especially as money is getting tighter. People are looking for, I'm not going to say for sure things, but certainly if you've already got a business, as you've just said there, and you've got customers and you've got revenue coming in, then most investors would see that as a better bet than, as you said, the old napkin where, oh, I've got these great ideas. Oh, have you validated it? Well, I've got a few people who say they really like it. Has anyone bought it? No. Has anyone tried it? No. Yeah, but give me $1 million. It's probably, I think those days are well and truly behind us. I think people are much more savvy these days than just putting money into, I believe in that person. Yeah, the product has to have some sort of validation, I think. So I think that's really good advice. And then you talked about the pitch decks as well. And I've seen lots of pitch decks, good and bad. But how do you get that resonance? What would you say it was the most important thing in your pitch deck? Was it data points? Was it stories? What was it that really made people think, actually, yeah, the MentalHappy is something I really want to get involved in?
Well, you're going to get a lot of no's, no matter how great your pitch deck is. And I will say, when I was putting together my deck, and even before MentalHappy, I worked on things before and had to build decks before. It was just so difficult. And thinking about why it was so difficult back then versus now, I mean, I could put together a deck in under an hour from, 10 slides, probably less than that. It's just, you have to really, the more you know your customer, the more you know the audience that you're targeting and what's their pain point, what's their benefit, what's the conversion rate that they actually convert to your product, how long are they using your product. The more that you understand those pieces, the deck is easy. The deck becomes a real struggle for founders when they just don't know those answers. When you know those answers, you can put together a deck, 10 slide deck, 12 maximum, very fast. And nowadays, people kind of get caught up in, like, oh, design of the deck and this and that. That couldn't be easier, in this time than ever before, because there's just so many, like, products online that help you put together a beautiful presentation. You just have to know the story arc of that presentation, impute it in something, and it spits it out. You can use whatever AI tool now
Mm.
to really quickly do that work for you. So I would say I had a really strong idea on what was working now, but I had an even bigger conviction on where the company was going, that professionals would want to use our product. I think I got a lot of pushback from investors in the beginning, like, why would a mental health professional, like a therapist, want to actually maybe even charge a little less running support groups online versus just charging people a couple $100 an hour and just doing that. Like, why would they come to your? So I got a lot of pushback on that and trying to explain, like, well, a lot of them do both already. They just don't have a platform or a medium for doing it. And they are also very burnt out people. It's very difficult to keep having these type of one-on-one conversations. And it's also very difficult to scale your business just meeting because time is limited, right? But you can scale your business in a platform where you're able to see a group of 10 people, a group of 15 people on a monthly basis and give them resources and, have them talk to each other. And that helps them. That also helps your business as that therapist. You're providing real education that people can have even outside of that one-on-one conversation with whoever they're meeting with, and that will scale. And they just could, and I was like, that could scale in this country, that could scale in other countries. We're actually getting ready to, we've been slowly testing out a small beta across Africa, therapists out there doing also small betas out in Australia. So I was explaining, like, hey, this is scalable. There are people who are life coaches, professionals, therapists, advocates, people who are survivors, like people who've gone through something themselves that want to run these type of support groups, and that will scale even faster than one-on-one therapy in other countries, because it's not the same outside of the United States.
And just because one of the main things you said there right at the beginning in terms of getting your pitch deck ready was you need to get to understand your customer. So if you get any tips, because obviously you've been through a process, so you've got to know those customers because you've worked in that space for a long time. But lots of founders have an idea, they then start putting that idea out there. What are the steps to get to know you and understand your customer so you can put together a compelling pitch deck?
Yeah. So one of the things that I still do today is try to get them on the phone. And I'm old, so I say phone, but even video sessions like this, right? Or if they're too busy. So let's talk first about video sessions like this. Send them a calendar link, say, hey, I see you've been using the product for a while, or I see you just signed up. Thank you for signing up. Would it be possible I could, treat you to a $10 Starbucks card or a $10 coffee, whatever it is. I would aim towards maybe not incentivizing people in the beginning, but if for people who have very busy customer base and it's just really hard to get them on the phone, maybe escalate it to trying to incentivize them, get them on the video call, have your questions pre-planned, maybe even send it to them in advance so that they can kind of think through it, and then ask them, like, how did you find us? What prompted you to sign up? What is it about the product that you were hoping to see that you don't yet see? What is it that you like? What would make you cancel your subscription or not use the platform? So you just kind of, even though someone signed up and it's kind of a yay, that's great, someone signed up moment, you can't assume that they like it. You can't assume that they'll continue using it. And you can't assume that they know how to even use the platform. And that was the mistake that I made early on. I was like, oh, support groups, people post it, they know how this works. Everybody uses mobile apps. It's easy, right? But people have a lot of questions. And the questions that they ask and the things that they're confused about, you realize, like, oh, yeah, you're right. That button should be on the left and not the right. You start to realize the gaps in your product because you're focusing on the big picture and as a founder, and everything makes sense in your mind because you built the thing. But it's when you see other people and their perspective. The other thing that I do that really helps inform the deck is when you do these type of video interviews is allow them to click through your site and so that you can see where they click, because sometimes they click on something and it's like, oh, you were hoping that something was there, but nothing, there's nothing there, but they clicked thinking that, oh, something was going to be there. So it gives you a lot of insight on where those gaps are. It helps you make your product better. And then understanding a little bit more about their pain point and a little bit more about their story can unlock some aha moments that you didn't have and really strengthen your deck, because you may assume that their pain point was X, but it's actually much deeper. It's X, Y, and Z. And then and then the other thing you can do is you can take their exact story, their testimony, a quote or whatever, and you can add that to the deck. Like, hey, spoke to Hakeem. This is why he's using our product. This is what he loves about it. And this is a direct quote on what his pain point is. And on top of that, there's 100,000 more Hakeems out there that are experiencing the same thing. There are millions of Hakeems also experiencing the same thing.
Yeah. So God forbid what you're saying is you have to speak to people and take feedback.
Yeah.
Because it's like people don't seem to want to do that anymore. It seems quite obvious that, to understand the customer, you want to speak to customers and you want to speak to lots of them and really get beneath what the challenges are. And I think that's a really important point, because I think, especially in the digital age, everyone seems to think, oh, I can send out emails, I can send out questionnaires, which you can still do those things. But I personally, probably because I'm old as well, don't think there's any substitute for actually speaking to people and really being able to get underneath what the challenges are and how they use it. And I think, as you said there, just that clicking through, I think is a really valuable insight. I've got a friend who actually runs the company, and that's what he does. He's basically user interface testing, so that when someone's got a digital product, he will then ring loads of people and go through it with them and actually talk through, well, how did that work? What were you expecting there? Is that button in the right place? And I think that's really, really important, actually. So I think there's some critical
it's
points.
actually very tough for founders in the beginning. Like even me, I was just like, no, I don't want to hear any negative feedback. So I just, I didn't do it early on. And then, when I really grew up as a founder, I started doing it, and it was like, oh, wow. I mean, I literally still jump on, like we have, customer success people, we have other engineers on the team that do user interviews, customer interviews, but I'll still schedule myself for the calls that I see that they have with customers. And I just even observe their conversations with the customer. I maybe jump in and ask a few, but it's still eye-opening on the things that a whole team of people completely miss, that a button should have been in a particular place and it's not, or something didn't click. So nothing's more sobering to your business and helping you grow faster and iterate faster than something as simple as like just talking to someone.
And again, I think that's a really good point. I think someone described it to me as, nobody wants you to tell them that their baby is not as attractive as you think it is.
Yeah.
So you do have that confirmation bias where you're like, no, it's great. All the people have told me it's great. It's great. And then when someone tells you something, you go, yeah, that's just them. As opposed to being agnostic about it and just say, well, actually, if my customers are telling me this, then you want to validate, because it might just be one customer, but you need to validate that idea and accept the possibility that actually there is something that needs to be changed. And I think that's a really important point, because I think people do get this like blinkered view in, no, I've been told this early doors, so I'm just going down this route, whatever anybody says, moving forward.
Yeah. And what I didn't realize is that, one, people really love speaking to the founder. They just, no matter how high up they are, like maybe you have a product where it's a lot of high level C-suite people, VP, like they really, even as busy as those people are, they really love speaking to the founder. And they'll oftentimes ask you, like, how did you start the product? How did you come across this? So that was eye opening. And then also, people paying you money just want you to fix the thing. They're not here to bash you. It's different than customers. It's different than like nasty reviews online or customer service type emails where they're upset about something. If they took the call with you, they're just excited to tell you what the thing is that they need fixed. And they're typically pretty patient about it if you're just honest with like, hey, it's going to take X amount of weeks to get this out. It's going to take a week. It's going to take a month. They're pretty patient with it, knowing that it's coming. And they love that you're doing something that is a direct request of them. So I think once I learned that these people they're not going to get on the call and like they might, I'm not saying they won't, but in my experience, I've only experienced nothing but like sympathy. Like they understand like building a thing is very difficult. And that's why I work somewhere else, and you're building the thing, and I just don't want your life to be any harder. Right. So I think that will be, if any founder or especially engineers, they like to kind of stay behind and building something. But if anybody has that fear that, someone's going to get on the phone and kind of like ream you out. That's not the case.
No, I think that's really very important advice. And actually, we've spoken. I mean, you've mentioned YC a couple of times, and I think I've mentioned it in the intro. And their motto is "Build something people want," which I think is what we've been talking about. Do you want to just give a 10-second overview of what YC is and how that benefited you being part of that program?
Yeah, so YC is a tech accelerator. They accept applications from people all over the world. So don't just assume that, hey, you're outside the United States, you're very, very far away. They won't review you. So everybody should apply. And it's an accelerator that you must do in person. So you have to come out to the Bay Area, you have to come to San Francisco, and you're there for, I believe, like 12 weeks. But YC really is for life. Like, it starts the moment you get accepted, it goes on forever. I've been part of the organization for years, and I can still call someone, I can still go online, schedule with a particular group partner, expert, someone that I want to talk to. There's a whole community. I think it's over like 5,000 companies now that they've invested in, where I can ask other founders for help. That's probably the most valuable. The group partners is helpful, but having other founders that are slightly ahead of you in the process or just going through the same thing and can exchange advice, information to help you move a little faster, to avoid certain things, to be aware of bad actors, right? Like, there just a lot of organizations, larger businesses, investors take advantage of founders. So it's really good to have that visibility of like, who should I avoid? So I would say the network of Y Combinator is really the most valuable thing that they provide. Like, it's just all these brilliant people in one place doing something awesome and making something people want, and trying and failing at it, trying and failing at it. So yeah, that's kind of what I would. And then the best part, and let me not leave this this part out, is that they invest in your business. They invest in your company. I'm not sure what it is now or what the terms are. I remember it was like $500,000 US way back when. So I'm not sure what the current terms are now, but pretty valuable experience that I received.
Yeah, well, I think the investment helps, but then, as you said, I think being a founder can be a very lonely place. So having a network of people who can help, who've been where you are, who are maybe behind you and maybe in front of you, but that network, that there's a lot of power in having a network of like-minded people, because often founders, I've seen it lots of times where the family members are sort of like, you sure you don't want to go and get a job again?
Yeah.
Because they're of a different mindset, so they don't really understand what it is you're trying to do and what motivates you, and they can't understand why you may have left a high-powered job and you're now working on your own and you're not earning the same amount of money. So to have people who've been where you are is, I think, quite important to keep you through some of those difficult times, which every founder invariably will have. It's never plain sailing where you just everything goes as you want it to go. So I think that network is really important. And then in terms of your mindset, I mean, we're talking about mental health, etc. That's often a challenge. How do you keep going? How did you keep going? Because invariably you talked about you get some no's, you get some rejections. So as a founder, and it's your baby, and you try to get to from here to there, and then you need that money to get from here to there, and then you don't get it for whatever reason because you get rejection. How do you keep going?
Yeah. So the best piece of advice that we got on the very last day of the program, demo day was over, it was behind us. It was just such a stressful time getting through that. But it was behind us. So this was like the very last talk that they did at YC. One of the things that I really hung on to is one of the partners at YC, he said, from this day forward, like, you have to remember that building a thing, let's say the thing is successful, right? Like, even if it feels like it's moving very fast, even the most successful founders, it's about like a 12-year journey, even for the most successful companies that we've seen. And you have to remember that it could be less than that, right? Because people shut down, people close. But if you're doing the thing and you're really sticking with it, it's like about a 12-year journey. And if you compare that to like your whole life, it's a very short amount of time. And when you look back on it, it oftentimes is the best time, right? Like even painful things. But what he said that I hung on to is that you have to remember in that 12-year period to still do your life in that time, right? So eat right, take care of yourself, go out on dates, meet someone, if you want to build a family, like do all those things, take small vacations, like just keep going and moving through your life with startup. Like carry your startup along with you with other aspects of your life, because it is the small breaks, it is the taking care of yourself, it is your family, it is those memories that you make outside of your business that really give you the ultimate motivation to like keep doing the thing. Now, before this, I didn't have a family. I didn't have a child. Like I wasn't in that place. I was just a founder. And I will say, like looking back at his advice, it's very true. Like what keeps me going, what keeps me motivated is the fact that I have something different outside of just startup. It is the fact that I do work out. I do take short walks. I will take time off and, walk away from my laptop. Those things fulfill me. If a friend calls and they really need me, but I do have a million things to do, I will show up for that friend, because after the 12 years, you don't want to say you had no one, right? You showed up for no one, you did nothing for no one, and it's just like you've achieved a successful thing and you really can't share it with anyone. So I would say in terms of like mindset, it's the fact that I do fill my cup up with other things outside of my business. Now, I do have crazy days, just like literally this last Saturday, I had to work all day. But normally in the past, I would work Saturday and all day Sunday. I can't really do that because I do want to enjoy time with my family. So I did work a lot of hours on Saturday, but I was like, Sunday is really just for me to have fun. And, it was warm here in the Bay. So, and just enjoy the sun. So in terms of mindset, you're able to stay mentally, balanced when it's not so lopsided, when it's not just work and you kind of fill it up. It's not going to always be balanced, but you got to keep trying to fill up your cup with something else.
I think that's a good point actually, because I think there is, and I don't know whether it's becoming more prevalent, but there seems to be this view that actually to be a founder you just have to work every hour God sends, and that's the way you become successful. That you don't have a family life, or if you have a family life, you neglect the family life and everything else. Whereas I think what you're saying, and certainly that's in keeping with my view, is that you need to have a balance, because if you don't have the balance, my view is that you're too exhausted to actually bring your best self into the space where you need to perform. For me, I need to be, I'm not going to say well rested, but as well rested as you can be, doing the exercise
Right.
and doing all the things that you need to do, so that actually when I'm at work, I can hit that work at 100%, as opposed to being fatigued, tired, making bad decisions. I think it's really important to take care of yourself, actually. So I think that's a critically important point, actually, that lots of
Yeah,
people
I
neglect.
can't stress that enough. Yeah, I cannot stress that enough. Like eat, eat as best you can, and really try to fit in, at minimum three workouts a week into your lifestyle. And when I say balance, people are like, there's no such thing as work-life balance. Yeah, I know that's trending on social media and people will say that. And yes, this is true. This is true. Because again, I'm very honest with you guys. I also just this last Saturday had to work the whole day. I had to work, I think it was like an 8, 9 hour day of working for me. And I can no longer pull in 12, 14 hour days. That's just not realistic. I have to
Mm,
grocery shop, make dinner, and it's just not realistic for me. I have to play all the time with a small toddler who wants to play. But I still had to pull in a full day and ask for help from other people, like in my family. But on the flip side of that, the balance is like, yeah, the next day I'm not burning myself out like that, because to work those 2 days on the weekend, Monday I'm completely shattered, right? I can't do the
yeah,
things on Monday,
exactly.
and I can't, so that's balance. Just means you're constantly working to kind of replenish. I would say that's what balance means. It doesn't mean you're kind of working to make things perfectly even. That's not going to happen.
No, it's not. It's just making sure that you are who you need to be, when you get into the workspace. And that genuinely comes down from taking care of yourself to make sure that you can actually be in the best place. So, you've raised over 2 million now, and obviously the business is doing
Nearly
well,
2 million.
doing 2
Yeah.
million. So how do you go about ensuring that you allocate it for growth, but also not losing the main purpose, i.e. measurable mental health outcomes, so that you're actually growing the business, but you're also making sure that the purpose of the business is staying on vision?
Yeah, that's a good question. At any point, there's sometimes a sacrifice. Sometimes a business just has to do the thing right now. I mean, yes, you have your true north, but I think we've been lucky in that our growth trajectory has just kind of kept on going towards our true north. There was a period in our time where we were doing something very opposite of our true north, right? Like we had a physical product. I really wanted to be, a health tech company. So there are periods where you maybe just have to do what you got to do. I mean, I literally know people who, bootstrapped their tech company selling t-shirts, right? Just like completely not related. There was a famous company that sold cereal boxes. If you know,
Mm.
they sold cereal boxes to get to where they need to be. It's just sometimes it's opposite, but I feel, at least for us right now, the growth is going towards our true north. So as we're growing, as we're adding more groups onto the platform, as we're adding more group participants to the platform and that user and customer base, we are moving towards this place where that emotional well-being is integrated more and more into health systems. We have larger organizations that are joining our platforms, like behavioral health hospitals. Our goal is to eventually land a huge medical hospital. So we've been kind of doing some small pilot pitches there, but I do feel like we're tracking in that direction. And sometimes it's not there yet, but you just have to kind of, the biggest part is knowing what your true north is. And no matter the decision, I kind of always believe like even the wrong decision pushes you back towards the right way that you were supposed to be going. A lot of people don't believe that, but I mean, look back at your life, you'll realize that you ended up where you were supposed to be anyway. So yeah, it's one of those things where you can't stress yourself out about it too much, but having that mission and purpose and everyone on the team knowing what it is very helpful.
Now that's a good advice. And I always say this: I can't believe 44 minutes have gone. Actually, don't know where the time disappeared to. So let's wrap up in terms of, so if you, I'm sure everybody's listened to every single minute, and they should have done. If they haven't, and you could give them something like 2 or 3 tips in terms of fundraising and keeping going and building a business, what would those 3 key tips be for the audience?
I would highly advise people to keep going, even if your business changes along the journey. It pivots a lot. I would definitely encourage people to keep going. I mean, obviously do what, works for you, but I love company origin stories. I'm a big buff of that. I love understanding like how a company started, and even some of the biggest companies in the world started off doing something else. Like Wells Fargo Bank is like one of the biggest banks here in the United States. I think they started off as like a horse and carriage company. Like it was just not a bank 100, 200 years ago, right? So just know that companies are very different in the beginning. Like Netflix had a big billboard that I loved in LA, and it said keep going, keep chasing your dreams, and remember that Netflix started selling DVDs also like 20 years ago. They were selling DVDs. So I think that's really great motivation for anyone to realize that it is a very long journey, and it's okay that it looked different in the beginning than how it looks now or how it's going to look in the future. So my first advice to any founders: keep going. Second is, if you are working on something and it has a little bit of validation, maybe a lot of people are oftentimes swayed away from, like, when they ask friends and family to invest early, you'll get honestly a lot more no's from your friends and family sometimes than you do, especially if you come from a cultural background where, like, taking financial risks like that isn't like, why would I invest in this thing that, I don't know how I'm going to get my money back or if I'll get my money back. Don't be afraid to ask your customers to invest. Like if you have users on your platform, if you have some type of early traction, maybe consider raising a crowdfunding round where you can ask them to contribute to the product that they love and that they're building. My third piece of advice that I didn't say at the beginning of the show is that this is like a very exciting time to be building something in tech. It's never been easier with so many tools, so many affordable SaaS products. I think our sales stack, I don't think it costs us more than $2,500 for the whole year for our whole sales stack. I was actually going to publish an article on that. And that's just different tools and SaaS products that we use to scale our sales. So AI has really made things very exciting. It's made work a lot faster and easier. So I would say if you're thinking about building something, this couldn't be a better time to jump in. Being a solo founder, maybe you're not a technical person, maybe you're just trying to figure it out. It's such a great time. And my last piece of advice is, consider joining a really great accelerator. It really changed my life. Y Combinator was amazing for my journey and still is. So if you feel like you built something, you've got a little traction going, even if it's just an idea and you just want to test it out, maybe consider applying. But whatever it is that you're doing, big or small, in tech, not in tech, I wish you the best of luck on your journey.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's a perfect place on which to close, and I will put Tamar's all her socials and her details, because I'm sure some people will want to will tap you up for more advice, and other people may want to join the platform. So I'll make sure that I can facilitate that easily.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening and having me today.
Really pleased that I could get Tamar on to the show to share her story with us, and she gave us some real clear gems from how to ensure that you validate your idea by using your users, and about the fact that actually getting some users on board using your product before you go to institutional investors is a very good idea. And she talked us through how she started crowdfunding first, and then how she used that money, and then how she then used into venture capital. And the other thing that she talked about, which really resonated with me, was the importance of networks, and networks of people who are in the same place that you are, or maybe just ahead of you. And there she talks about joining accelerator programs. Really good advice.